Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Mind Over Muscle, Syncing Your Brain, Emotions, and Total Body Vitality. I'm Geoff Walker, and I'll be your host today. It's fantastic to have you all here. You can see I'm having difficulty reading my teleprompter already. So we'll go. Now, as many of you know, there's often a tendency in our profession to see the body as a collection of individual systems disconnected from one another. Today, we're going to explore a truly holistic perspective where the mind, body, and the emotions and physical health are not just linked, they're interdependent on each other. So this is exactly what John Polly, who's our presenter today, or JP, as he's affectionately known by just about everyone in the world, has dedicated his career to, understanding how our thoughts and feelings and mental state influence our physical health. So through the session, what we're hoping that you'll gain is some insight into JP's approach for syncing all these aspects of being. So there's only a couple of people on here today, but the recording is going to be going out to a couple of hundred people. So kudos to you people that are here today, and kudos to you that will actually listen to the recording, because there's going to be a lot of great information for you to sync. So suspend your disbelief in what you think you know and what you might know, and let your mind wander. And as Reich Hammer says, man thinks that he thinks, but in reality, he's just a thought. So I'll let you ponder on that one. So without further ado, let me introduce our resident expert, John Polly. JP, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Geoff. I mean, I'm expecting you to ask me really deep, insightful questions to really to bring out the best in me. But for now, I'll say hello, everyone. I'm JP, and I've been lucky enough to be in the sort of movement, health, well-being space since around 2005. I changed career direction at 35. Before that, it was the natural progression. I had a furniture company. So you naturally go into, no, you don't. So that's where I found myself. And I didn't sort of start in this place going, everything's connected. I got to prove it. I started off thinking that exercise was the thing. That was the big thing that we needed. Everyone needed to exercise, and that would answer all the problems of the world pretty much. And the more people that I helped with exercise, I was also a sports massage therapist as well. But the more people I helped, the more I realized that it wasn't the only thing going on. And there seemed to be a lot of spanners in the works that I couldn't quite help. And changing the exercise program wasn't doing the job. So that's when I went exploring for other things and other people that could explain more of the things. And then I ended up in this other place where it's one of those classic things of once you know how much you don't know. And I reckon the people that I think are the smartest people I've ever spoken to are the ones that know how much they don't know, not the ones that know a lot. They happen to be the same people. They know an awful lot. But once you get a handle on an idea, just a feeling, just how much you don't know, I reckon you're really onto it.
Well, I'm way ahead of the pack then. I really don't think I know anything. So the more you know, the more you don't know, as they say. So, well, on that, have you found that people who are more emotionally attuned to their health experience faster recovery or better overall vitality compared to those who not necessarily ignore the connection between the two, but they haven't discovered it, or they've forgotten that there is a connection?
Well, that's a really good question, because as all good answers start, it depends, right? So here's the thing. You would expect more emotionally attuned people to have a better awareness of the totality of their experience. But that's not always the case for better outcomes. So I'll give you a few little kind of stories to illustrate. Back in the day, I me and my wife were trying to have kids, found out there were problems, had some sessions with natural health practitioners, and we were like, what's going on? We're fit and healthy, and we want kids, and etc. etc. And then because you get into this kind of bitter and judgmental place almost about other people having kids. How come it was just they had a kid by accident? They didn't even want a kid. They're having them by accident, right? And the person we were speaking to at the time, they were like, well, do you really want kids? And we're like, absolutely. Like, and do you think those people really cared whether they had kids or not? It doesn't seem that way. Well, there's your answer. Like, their state was they're relaxed and carefree and not thinking about it. You're focused and obsessive and stressed about it. That puts you in a state where you are ultimately prepared to be parents, and your stress is one of the things that are preventing you being parents, right? So there's that emotional attuned people who are so, oh, it could be this, and oh, I wonder, if that relationship I've got there is affecting what's going on. And then you become, when you understand how many things are affecting your experience right now, it can actually elevate stress levels. It becomes its own stressor by you understanding how many things can affect you in one time, as opposed to being in that place where you're more accepting and understanding of those elements. And then maybe you have the awareness to go, I reckon it's a lot to do with this and this. So that's where I'm going to put my focus, is on healing this issue that I have around a relationship, or this thought pattern, the recurring thought pattern that I have around something that happened in the past. Or I think that somewhere in the mix in my nutrition, I just know there's something going on there, and I'm just going to spend some time investigating that. But you're doing it in an accepting and almost a with love. It's a self-love act when it comes to that. They're the people that tend to navigate their way out really, really well. Now, as I say, when people sort of don't care, as it were, that can often be a good enough place to be in order to heal well. But also, when they don't know, they just have no clue how they're damaging themselves. Well, no, they're going to stay damaged, and if they have no understanding beyond that. So I feel like it's a kind of a confusing answer, and I apologize for that. But the nature of humanity is complicated, and there are so many factors affecting each one of us, and each one of us has a unique experience of walking this earth to this point in time. So if you're asking me, if people come to me, what are the ones that have got the best chances? I say the ones who are open to hearing anything and trying anything. They tend to be the ones that do particularly well. And as I've mentioned to you before, Geoff, my like a party trick, if you like, is that when people have some chronic thing that they're dealing with, and I use that word as the only one that really describes the things that come to me, then they spend 2 hours with me, and we do explore their physical body with movement screens, and we look at the different kind of physical systems, but we have quite long conversations about what's going on in between their ears and what's going on in this place in their chest, so that we can get a handle on how that might be in the mix. Should people want to kind of dip their toe in the water of this, I've got a feeling that people watching this won't, will already be aware of the basic reads, as it were. But the thing that really switched my interest onto it was just reading The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. That was the one that kind of switched me onto it, and that was like a gateway drug, you know,
Was there
to
something
all the other
specific in
things.
there? Was it something
Yeah,
specific in
it
there
was.
that,
It was that. Well, number one, it's his story. The fact that he was an award-winning cell biologist, so he was very in the physical sciences, and that he ended up in this place where he just, talked about um, thought and emotions and the spirituality of life as being the most important things that will affect our well-being in going through life. But it was just that for me, I want a trail of breadcrumbs of how this thing that you can't touch, like a thought or an emotion, I can't physically touch that in you right now,
or
how that
pain?
turns into a physical thing, right? And he left the trail of breadcrumbs. It's like, okay, then, so here you've got an environment that your cells live in, and around each cell, there was something called an integral cell membrane. It's like, until the invention of the electron microscope, they didn't even know existed because it's too thin. It was like 7 microns or something crazy, right? Anyway, it's got that. Each cell has got an integral cell membrane with like little, for want of a better word, sensors that are nerve endings that are going out into the bloodstream, and then some that go into the cell. And the environment that's in the blood will affect what message the cell is receiving from outside in the environment. Well, that environment can be affected by what we eat and how we move. It can be affected by our hormonal balance. It can be affected by, dysfunctioning organs. But it can also be massively affected by the hormones that will be flowing as a result of our life experience, right? So our life experience being how it affects our mind, our brain, our emotional responses. That is all shoved into the bloodstream as well. So if you've got a raging storm of cortisol chronically raging through your system constantly, well, what's the message from out here that's delivered to in here? Well, it's like, Jesus, it's a shitstorm out here. Don't go off repairing stuff. Just hunker down and let's weather this storm. Don't go repairing things and making them all better. It's not what you do. When your village is burning, you don't go, do you know what? I really should clean out my cupboards, right? That's not what you do, right? And so the cell is getting that information, and it can come from anywhere. So the idea that the life of the things that you can't touch affecting your cells in the same way that the physicality of your body, physical systems of the body can, that was the link that was made for me, because I always wanted that link into the physical, and I still do, by the way. All the things that I teach, I've done a course called Brain Body Essentials, just kind of charting the links between mind, emotions, and our physical body, and all the things that we need. I still want to show the physical links that go there. I want to talk about, okay, then, can I share another story?
Indeed.
So I posted about this week. I had my hair cut, thank you very much, and this week, and my hairdresser introduced me to someone else who was in the salon. I said, "Do you still do that stuff where you kind of help people get through, like, pain and stuff like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And so she introduced me to this lady, and she'd had a year of neck pain, and as my saying is, everyone and their dogs had a go, right? So in other words, everyone's poked and prodded and injected her neck, and literally nothing has worked. And she's thinking of going, is there a medical route that she can follow, surgery or something? It just needs to go away. And I said, okay, so there is no disrespect to all the practitioners that have tried, but my focus now is not her neck anymore. Because if it was a neck issue, unless it's something that hasn't been found in her neck that's going on, her neck is a symptom of something happening somewhere else, right? So at this point, I'm talking physical body to her. So I go, okay, then, has anyone done anything beyond the neck? And I go, well, the physio did go around my shoulders a bit. Oh, okay. Has anyone gone down the front of your body? What about your belly, the front of your hips, anything like that? No one. Okay, well, there's a starting point. So if we look at the muscles and connective tissues, they form elastic bands around the body. There's elastic bands that run down the front of your body. This is the language I used for her. So I said, let me give you a visual. And I grabbed hold of the front of my shirt at the belly and I yanked it down. And it was like, oh, okay, then now what do I do to fight that? To keep me upright? Straight away, boom, right? You're in a job where you lift your arms, right? And you're fighting to stay just upright. Upright posture is a challenge for you if there's a limitation around your belly. Same with the front of your hips. This is pulling you back into where you physically need to be for full function. So could you see how this could be a symptom? And she's like, well, now that I could see light bulbs going off, because that really made sense to her. I said, so there's the thing. You can have some tightness elsewhere in your body that's affecting a place. You're getting pain in a place. Pain is the symptom, but the source of that pain is somewhere else. I said, now, the reason that other restriction is there might not even be as a result of, say, sitting too much, right? It could be because of stress or trauma. That can create what we would call low-level motor unit activity, which I call on clench, right? So you're on clench in these places. It's not even a restriction. It's not a physical bind even. You're on clench in a couple of places. And again, you change one thing in one part of your body, you change everything everywhere else, because the rest of your body becomes a compensator for that thing where you're restricted. But while you're restricted, again, we're into that place of the things that you can't see and touch. Now, for me, I would then use intuition as part of a session, but looking into that woman's eyes, there's no way that's just physical. That's what I can tell you looking into that woman's eyes. So there's another story that will give you that. There's that trail of breadcrumbs, right? There's this thing. A thought can immediately put tension in the tissues of your body. Guarantee it, right? If you get people to perform a squat, then you take them to a place where they've been upset or really sad, and you spend a bit of time there and they're feeling that emotion, and you pop them back into that squat, it's not going to feel very nice. This happens with about 90% of a room when you do this. Then you take them to a joy place. You take them to tell me a place where you just felt elated. Adopt the postures of how elated you felt. Feel it run through your body. Let the facial expressions change. Do that squat again. Wow, that's so free. Yeah, weird that, isn't it? Just change your physical body with a conversation. Yeah, that's what happens. We've all been around people that light us up. The freedom we feel in our body, the life and energy we feel in our body when we're around our people. Isn't that amazing? I mean, that we don't really need to look far for evidence, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting point, because it's one of the, which is what we used to talk to our kids about, that there's if there was someone giving them grief at school or something along those lines, it would be, kids, in this world there's people who take energy, people who give energy, and people who share energy. So, and they're the people you're talking about, that when you're around someone where there's a free exchange of information between people and there's no tussle, but there's people who sometimes try and drag the life out of you. And I'd imagine, the few of us that are here now, and probably the people that will listen to this, they've all got a client or clients that they kind of don't look forward to seeing, because they're hard work for whatever reason, or they've got a different approach to being treated. So how can you'd get people coming in to see you who would be skeptical? So you kind of see people at the end of the line sort of thing, who've gone through the process, and they've got, go and try this guy. You know, he does some, I don't know what he does. He does something or other. But people seem to get better. So when they come and see you and they're skeptical, do you have any sort of process that you go through with them to get them on board, sort of thing, or get them to open their mind, or to suspend their disbelief?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, I'm pretty open. Like, if someone has been sent to me, do you know what I mean? Like, by some enthusiastic supporter of my approach, right? They've gone, you really need to see this guy, right? And they also get told that, you know, things like, oh, he's going to blow your mind, or, you know, he's a magician, or anything like that. Straight away, they're already skeptical, aren't they? It's just like, when, like, I don't even know this person, I've never heard of them, so they can't be all that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not world famous. So it's like, right, my first question is, like, do you want to be here? Like, I said, I'm like, I know that sounds like a weird question, because I know who you've been sent by, and I know they're enthusiastic and stuff, but, like, are you here because you've been told to come? Or are you here because you want to be here? Like, you're interested to kind of explore the situation. So I tend to be kind of open about their, you know, how they've come to me. And I think that's kind of good, because it makes them even think, do I even want to be here? I've never had someone leave at that point, but I have had people be surprised that they've been asked, and I could see their state change just by me asking the question, because they're like, no, I do want help. Yeah, that's normally the place they, even if they're resistant, they do admit to themselves that they want help. So I say, great, because I'm probably going to go into some stuff that you won't have heard of before. And if you're just open, I know that it'll help you, or we're more likely to get a result for you if you come into it open. That's a great starting point from my point of view, is just crank open the mind to start with. Then it's a series of example and education for me. So as an example, I might, if it's a physical thing and they are doubtful, that I talk about these elastic bands in the body, about tissues that are all joined, you know, and become elastic bands around the body. We're not like 622 separate muscles. We're one muscle in 622 bags within this unitary bag. Straight away, that's like, well, you know, the physio hasn't told them that, or the doctor hasn't told them that, you know. So I will then have to go, okay, then, well, let me just do an example, and I'll get them to stand on their 2 feet, face me, and bring their hand out in front of them with their thumb up. And I'll say, like, soften your knees, soften your joints in general, but keep your feet pointing at me. I just want you to rotate round as far as you possibly can. And just mark where, you know, where on the wall you kind of get to with that rotation. And then I'll just get them to take their left foot and just tip it onto the outside edge of that foot. So just keep that foot there, and with your right arm, just turn around again. And you lose, depending on the person, anything from like 20 to 50 degrees of rotation by this small little change in the position of the foot. And that immediately will get their attention, because I said, now, before we did that, would you have said that your left foot had anything to do with where your right shoulder could go? And again, most would say, well, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily have expected such a big change. Now, the smart ones, and normally this is when I'm in a room full of exercise professionals, there'll be a smart person in the room that says, I know what you've done there. You've just locked their talus bone in their foot. It's not even a soft tissue thing. You've just locked the talus bone, created a skeletal lock, and then you've got your answer, and you're passing it off as somehow everything's connected. And, you know, so yeah, that's a really good point. Let's do it again. Redo the first test, and then I'll say, now all I want you to do is just pick up your arch. Pick up your arch of that left foot. Hold that arch up and go again. ironically for me, I go less far with the tissue lock than we. So if I hold a high arch in my left foot and then turn with my right shoulder, I don't get as far as when I lock my talus bone. Anyway, some people go a bit further, some people go a bit, but there is still that restriction, unless they are hypermobile, in which case it's a failed test because the rest of their body capitulates. Their soft tissues capitulate to whatever, right? And that's a different discussion, and that can be a fun discussion to have in the room as well. But about 85 to 90% of the room, it's a good test. And so again, we can take them through the process and explain, yeah, well, it's still, there is connective tissue that will join those 2 points. And you limit it in one place, you limit in all the places up the chain, but you get far enough away from the original place, and there's quite a significant change. You get a swimmer in there with a shoulder injury that keeps recurring over and over. And again, everyone and their dog's had a go at the shoulder, and they've rehabbed the shoulder, and it's stronger than it's ever been, and then they still hurting. It's not a shoulder problem anymore, is it? But do they have a stiff opposite ankle by any chance? You know, these are the things that we can start playing with from a physical tissue perspective. But it could be around their hips. Why could it be around their hips? Well, left hip and right hip might have different meanings in their world for them. I know, for example, that if I have any number of conditions, it could be a shoulder problem, it could be plantar fasciitis, but the client is female and they have an inner left hip restriction, what we call a deep front line restriction on that left side around the pelvis. I will be asking about their emotional stress in the weeks and months previous to that. I'm interested to know why that would be there, because there's just a correlation between females' stress and a restriction in the inner left hip. Those things have gone together, but the symptoms could be plantar fasciitis or shoulder pain. It could be low back pain, right? But it could be dependent on that body and how it plays out and what else is going on, and biomechanically how they've been for their whole lives, and the experiences and where they grew up and the environment that they're in, whether they're happy with their relationships and their job, and the amount of outdoor time they get, how much me time they have, well, then I know there's a correlation between those things. If we free up the left hip with movement or with vibration or with hands-on manual therapy, I'm definitely helping. But am I getting to the root cause? Still not. Boom. I think I'm at the root cause. This is where I've come from. Oh, this myofascial stuff is the shit. I'm gonna help everyone. Oh, hang on. Keeps coming back month after month. All right then. Despite me giving them all the tools that they need to keep that free, it keeps coming back. All right then. I need to look further, because I know I'm onto the correlated cause, but there's something underlying that as well. Explore, explore, explore.
Yeah, I know the brain body course that you've got, which is excellent, and it's about 10 hours of what we're actually talking about now. So I know that there's tools and assessments that you use in that. So do you have, I guess within there that I've seen, there is an assessment that you use for mental and emotional stress as well in that. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean,
people come to you for something physical, so you go through doing some physical assessments, but then you do an assessment on their mental well-being.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. Let me find a slide that might be useful here. Let me just pull that up on the screen. Bear with me while I find my way to the bit that I need. Right. So what we'll do is we'll come onto here.
I recognize some of those slides then.
Yeah. And then I can't seem to get behind. That's annoying. I can't my toolbar at the top is preventing me from actually getting to where I want to get to. Bear with me here. Here we go. That's better. So here's the thing about asking questions. We've gone, when did the pain first start and where is it? And, what kind of things were you doing at the time physically and all the rest of it? But there's a lot more to to a stressor than even we might think of originally. Like, okay, then, so there's not necessarily been an incident that's created the pain in a place. There's I have low back pain, or my calves hurt all the time, or I've got Achilles tendonitis, or I've got I've got a bursitis in the shoulder, right? All those kind of things. And we're going, okay, then. And then you go, well, he must have been under stress. So then people just go, okay, then it's work stress or it's emotional stress. But look at the stress. Look at the stressors that we can be subject to. And this is just a slide that I use. This doesn't even cover it, right? Because there's no end of things that are there. But this is also in the course as well. But it gives people a flavor of what we would describe as the four main: mental, emotional, lifestyle, metabolic, and environmental. Now, once you know things like that, well, then you want to start asking questions about those as well, even if you don't necessarily know where to go. That's why I did brain body, was because I want people to know, okay, then what do they even do with the answers, right? let's give you some tools and strategies and practical actions that you can then do with your clients as a result. So, but you want to ask, do you get enough me time, right? Do you feel claustrophobic in at home or work? Do you experience negative thoughts? Do you ever do you find yourself feeling depressed? I think the questions around fulfillment in life, they're the ones that really take me. I've got a kind of a story that I'm sure I told in the last webinar as well, but it's stuck with me because I saw the guy once and he got his answers and went off and was all good. And that is a guy that came in with 10 years of neck pain. And when we went through everything, what he'd done, he was so consistent and committed to all the practices that everyone else had given him along the way. But from a physical perspective, he was a fine specimen, mobile. I went through a physical assessment with him, and he's in great shape, and there weren't major limitations in his body. So I'm expecting to find something that is creating this compensation in the neck, sort of further down, most likely, and there's something that's therefore affecting him that I can then say, I can then do these movements and then, almost like go away and think about this. And we got through everything, and he came on this kind of like journey with me, because I know at the end he was just sitting there shaking his head saying, wow, I thought I had a neck problem, right? Because what we realized, there was no space in his life, right? So he didn't have, he was happy with his job, but it was a lot of hours, and he was happy with his home life, but he had a young family, and it took the rest of his time. In between those two things, there was no time for him. There was no time to indulge in previous passions. There was no time to take a walk, to be on his own at any point. Like, so he had no alone time. He had no passion time, no things that just gave him space to let him decompress, and no kind of fulfillment time. And I said, what do you love? What do you love doing? I used to surf. Oh, okay. So you don't surf anymore. Just time. Like, okay. How long ago did you stop surfing? And the answer was 10 years. Like, it's not rocket surgery at that point. I'm guessing everyone listening to that story now knows what I was suggesting he went away and did. So my prescription, as it were, was find time to surf twice a week. And that won't just help your neck, because it wasn't about the physical act of surfing, just to be clear. It wasn't the body positions of surfing that was going to help him. It would, because it's physical activity. It was the place that took in his world that he needed. But I didn't just go home, tell your wife you've got to have this me time. I said, that's your life, that's her life. She's not in pain currently. She probably will be. So go away, have that conversation of how you open up those 2 slots for you and how you open up those slots for her too in the world that you're currently occupying. Because that is the most important thing that you can possibly do, not just for neck pain, but for health of your mental, emotional, and physical world right now. So that was just another story that is, again, like, I'm finding that the stories are probably more powerful than me saying, well, this links to this and this links to this and this links to this. It just shows you how we're the totality of all the things. And it's just a matter of, I guess my job is find the things that float to the top that are really the most significant and obvious that need attending to. And they are significant and obvious to me, but we can't expect general population to know all of these connections, because our culture educates us that everything is separate and requires a specialist in that department to help. So if you have neck pain, you have to go to a neck person, and they're able to help you with your neck. Well, what if your neck pain is an emotional problem and you need a counselor? I'm probably going to be able to, and by the way, lots of other people can do this, and I'm not the source of all things, but what I know I can do is, if that is the thing that those people need, I know that at the end of 2 hours, I'm going to be able to say, here's your referral point, because it's not a physical neck pain, even though you're experiencing physical neck pain.
Okay, so there would be a point, because it's kind of on a spectrum that you're talking about now. Someone's comes in for neck pain, and you ask a couple of questions, and then they start asking themselves questions about whether it's neck pain or not. So there is, you get to a point where you say, well, where they say to themselves, okay, well, this isn't what I thought it was. So you've got a group of people that you can refer people out to, but this is someone who probably didn't realize that they had anything else going on. So you're the first point of contact that's kind of illuminated that for them, where they might realize that maybe it's their lifestyle, or maybe it's a thought pattern as well. We haven't really touched on that much either today, which is something I want to get into, about how people tell themselves these stories just on a loop about their self-worth and all that sort of stuff. And that you can kind of see that in their posture as well. And you can see people who, I think, the great Tom Myers used the analogy of like a car salesman, and they're full of puffery, and they're up and they're stuck on the in-breath sort of thing. And then there's people who are, at the other end of the spectrum, who are sad and depressed, and they're stuck on their out-breath. So, yeah, what we're looking at now is just people come to you and they kind of discover that there's something else apart from their sore neck. Is that how you characterize so far? And
Yeah,
sometimes you're
there's a lot more
correct,
to it, and
yes.
there's a lot of things that connect into their whatever they're experiencing. There's a lot of factors, and then having understood that there's this myriad of places that they can look for reasons, causes of that thing, then going, but what are the most significant, and what can I do about that? So we shouldn't be afraid to go, do you know what? That's what I know enough to go, I think you need to speak to a professional. But that's not me. Now I do mindset coaching, but if it's, trauma or something like that, there's no way I'm an expert in that. I'm going to suggest someone, that they, if they have anyone that they know, or if I don't know someone that's suitable, I would actually do a bit of research for them to find a referral point. So if it's within my wheelhouse of skill set, I'm going to say, I can help you with this. If it's not, then how professional do you think they think you are? If you go, do you know what? It's this, and it's not that kind of, it's not what I do, as it were. I remember being with someone one time. She managed a gym, funnily enough, and she'd been having this kind of like pain, and it was like underneath one side of her diaphragm. I think it was like a right diaphragm. And anyway, I took her through the process, and I took her through a physical movement screen and things like that. And I'm like, do you know what? Oh, by the way, she didn't know that it was based there. She just knew that she didn't function like she wanted to when she was exercising. And I went through all the stuff, and I'm like, it's none of the things that I do. I says, you've got a thing that's just going on here. And it doesn't consistently show up when I try different types of assessment. It's not consistent, but it's there, and it's something that I don't do. That's all I could say. And it needs investigating. So I don't know, but I said it might just be worth checking with a doctor or something like that. And I reckon it was 6 months later, and I got a message on Messenger, and it just started with, from her, you're pretty smart. And I'm like, so I'm like, thank you. Why? And she was just about to have surgery. It was a really unusual thing that she had in the place that I said that it was going on. She said it's a really rare condition and it requires surgery. It took me months to sort out because the medical profession were a bit baffled by what was going on. But it was where you said it was, and they're gonna I've just got to have this minor surgery, and then all is well with the world, kind of thing. It's like, wow, that's really cool, right? I remember being in another gym one time doing some. I've been a master trainer in exercise in the past, and I remember I was teaching in this gym, and I saw the owner of the gym walking around, and he's buff and fit and muscular, strong, moved well. I said, "What happened to you?" He goes, "What do you mean?" And he looked really defensive, and I'm thinking, "Oh God, normally people are quite open when." And he goes, "No," he said, "I'm fine," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, but." And I got my hands, and I just said, something's gone on here. And I went across his lower rib cage. Something's happened here, because you can just see it in their gait, right, when they're walking around. And he goes, "Oh, I had a car accident like 10 years ago, and I was crushed across here, but I'm fully recovered now." And he said, "Could you see that from my gait?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I mean, it shows up if you're kind of, looking for it, as it were." And that's what I tended to do with people. I try to switch it off as much as I can now, because you just don't be thinking about that stuff all the time. But yeah, it's there. Like, it shows up in our body. Now, that was a direct trauma that happened from the outside, but stuff shows up in the body. There's another thing I do. It's rare now because we've been pushed into a digital world. But when we saw people more in person, I do something that I've nicknamed intuitive gaze coaching, and so IGC, and what it is that they say the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? Well, what I've found is, if I think people have some deep personal reflection to do, and they are open to this. Now, it's intimidating for an awful lot of people. And by the way, as a practitioner, I think it's intimidating for most practitioners, which is why they don't do it as well. But it's actually gazing without a break into someone's eyes and then talking about whatever comes up intuitively. Now, there is no place to hide when you have continuous eye contact with someone. There's no place to hide. So you have to open, both people need to be open in this situation. And the reason I call it intuitive gaze coaching is I don't just like stare at them and make them feel uncomfortable. That goes very quickly, by the way. After about 30 seconds, both parties are pretty comfortable. It's just that you hold the gaze, and then within the first 2-3 minutes, something will happen. We'll go, okay, then, so this is coming up, and I'm just going to ask you a question about it. So you'll just ask a question, and without breaking gaze, breaking eye contact, we have this, and it can go 45 minutes continuous, and it can have a remarkably fast outcome, is what I would say. So I could be in mindset sessions, maybe 5 90-minute sessions. I can often achieve the same breakthroughs in 45 minutes with IGC if people are open to just they're going to lay themselves open through their eyes, right? That's quite intimidating for most people, so most people choose not to do it. But yeah, it's a matter of opening both people up and then finding your way to an outcome relatively quickly. I remember one time I did it, and the moment the person became comfortable in the gaze, she just started talking. She spoke for 20 minutes straight. I didn't say a thing. So can you imagine how that had been just sitting there the whole time, just waiting for an outlet that just needed to come out? She just needed to say all of these things, and they just kept tumbling out. I was halfway there after the first 20 minutes without saying a word. That's powerful right there. Like, and when do we hold eye contact with anyone other than our special people, as in our partners? It just doesn't happen. It create, we've lost this human, intimacy, like the platonic, meaningful, loving intimacy that is outside of a romantic relationship. We've lost that, especially in the digital age. And that's me speaking as a predominantly online educator and mentor.
Well, it's about, it sounds like a lot of what you're doing and a lot of what therapists and practitioners of the similar ilk is helping people to remember who they are and what they did. Like the surfer that you spoke about earlier, he used to like surfing, and he just forgot that he liked surfing, and you were there to remind him that he likes surfing and he probably should go and do it if he wants to feel that way again. So we've got, there's on this call, there's remedial massage therapists, myos, osteos, physios that will be listening to the recording, etc. So I'm sure there'll be a number of them who've just heard what you said about the IGC and kind of go, really? Come on, JP, where are you going with that sort of thing? So, and there's probably some new ideas and some people who think they're holistic, but maybe the idea of holistic is different to what you're describing today. So how could like a new practitioner, someone's been out for 12 months, they've done their course, how do they integrate this into what they're doing? And for the seasoned professionals of 10, 20 years or so that have been practitioners, they'd like to move more towards doing this. What's an action step that they can take to start integrating this into their own practices?
So here's the thing. The starting point is having awareness, right? So I've come from the exercise industry, and I'm more in that kind of well-being and human experience space now. And that's multi-practitioner kind of place that so I could speak at lots of different types of conferences now, as opposed to turning up exercise conferences and talking about the hormones that happen in strength training, for example. I'm kind of a long way from that now, because I want to talk about all the systems that are affected, and by systems I still mean the mental and emotional system, as well as energetic and spiritual too. So the first point for someone who's new is just be aware that there's all these other things out there, because you'll be way ahead of me when I started out just looking at the physical body, exercising it and massaging it, and it's that same thing where it's just like, wow, I use an elbow and I go hard, and that's how you get results. And then as you get into your manual therapy career, you're like, oh, right, okay, it's not kind of go hard or go home. And the same with exercise. Oh, it's not go hard or go home. Right, before you know it, you've got this much more sophisticated approach, right? So if I'd had an awareness that there wasn't just that worked out there in the world early days, then that would have helped me, because I've got this awareness without having to be an expert in all those other things. Having an awareness instantly raises your vibration, and it instantly raises your professionalism in what you do. Right? So the reason I wrote, for example, the Brain Body course is for those people that know a lot of the stuff and have researched a lot of stuff and done courses and a lot of the stuff. My course isn't necessarily for them. The second half could be, because there may be practical strategies in there that they've never used. That's quite, a bit more up to date or modern. But I wrote that course because I think everyone on earth should be aware of that stuff, not just people that work in the industry, just everyone, like walking around in the street. I want you to be aware that you are this system of systems. You are this collection of energies and vibrations, as well as physical responses to physical things. And I want everyone to have that notion of that. So for newbies, have an awareness that this other stuff exists, that the nervous system and the hormones and the gut and, your nutrition, your skeleton, all of those things are affecting you all the time, all the soft tissues, all your genetic predispositions, whether certain things cause you inflammatory responses and other things do not, they all involve your posture, your recovery strategies, your brain, the quantum universe are all affecting you. What's in your blood at any one time affects you. Your belief and what's happening in your organs is affecting you. How you're hydrated is affecting you. How you move is affecting you. The emotional states that you spend most time occupying affect you. What you think about most of the time will be affecting you. Oh, let me just take a breath. So there's things like having some vagus nerve strategies. It might just be that if you can do a vagus nerve strategy, an action that will activate a parasympathetic response, that could be enough to show someone, to help them. But the reason that Brain Body exists is because I want to give people a hint at a lot of things that can be affecting them at any one time. A lot of different types of practitioners that are out there that have a handle on it, and then some practical strategies that if it's here or here or here are some things that you can do to help you know the questions to ask, to understand why that would be important, to know the answers to that, and what you might do with those answers. For the people that are more experienced, I would say you already have the awareness that there's lots of things out there that are affecting the human condition. Do you need to know all of them really, really well and become a practitioner in them? Not necessarily, but what I would say is follow your passion. So if there's something that you are you're really fascinated and drawn to, but you don't currently do, I would say add that to your skill set, because if you are passionate about it, you will be brilliant at it. And that's a bottom line for pretty much anything. If you're passionate about it, you will at least become very good. because passion will take you the rest of the way. I was passionate about running, but my genetic predisposition said that I was never going to be the best. But compared to the person that I would have been without that passion and without that ridiculous dedication to run training that I used to have, you know, I wouldn't have been, you know, a guy with my build running a marathon, right? But I've run marathons, right? Because passion took me there, like the determination and, you know, embracing the suck, as I think it's the Marines would say, that took me there. Passion took me there. Passion took me to the top 10% in a race. But remember, if you're in the top 10% in a race and there's 40,000 people in the race, you could be 3,537th. That sounds really rubbish. But being in the top 10 percentile, yeah, that sounds all right. Right. So that's the thing, you know, I never won a race, never won a race. But passion took me to a place where I was high performing according to my genetic potential. If anything, I ran beyond my genetic potential because of my passion and enthusiasm and positivity in that place and what it rewarded me, which, when I think about it now, I think it was self-esteem and confidence that's really what I was running for, was that it made me feel good about myself. Like, there we are again. We're out there in the ether, something I can't feel or touch. All this physical effort that was going in, what did it deliver? It wasn't about the abs. It wasn't about the shape my body was in. It was, God, I feel really good about myself.
All righty. Well, what might be another challenge for people is maybe, because I'm going to go and do it, I want to do the eye staring with someone. So I'll choose someone in my family, I think I'll start with, and see how we go with that and see what that's like. Because I know it's challenging and confronting just thinking about it, and I'm sure people listening to this as well, they'll be going, oh, that shouldn't be too bad. But the actual act of doing it, like you said, it's not for everyone. So
I would say, whether you love it or hate it, make sure you last a minute before you give an opinion on it, whether it's for you or not, because that first minute is all the you know,
giggles.
That's really weird, and that's the uncomfortable bit. But honestly, once people, I call it dropping in, once you just drop into that place, it's actually more vagal than it is cortisol inducing.
Yeah, well, I'm really proud and lucky to be having a conversation with you, because I think back to when I was starting in a period in my career where I knew a dozen different shoulder assessments, and that was what it was about, knowing how many assessments you knew and how you could isolate which muscle it was. And then once I knew which muscle it was, I knew which muscle to treat and to strengthen, and then everything was going to be okay. But over the years, you realize that it doesn't matter how many tests you know and how many exercises you give someone, that some people just don't get to where they want to be. So I think we're on a similar path, and I hope there's a bunch of people who are listening to this who can accept it for what it is. And
I just remembered, Geoff, I should probably, let me put my contact details up.
Yes, good idea.
There's all sorts of stuff in here, all sorts of goodies in here. Look at all these.
Well, the other little thing, you can actually, if you can add the link to your course too, the Brain Body course. And I believe there's a Black Friday thing on with that at the moment.
So if you are listening to this and it's before the end of November in 2024, there is currently a Black Friday deal that the platform are offering on those 4 courses, actually, but the Brain Body is the one we've kind of really been focused around today with all the kind of the topics. So that would be, reach out to me for a special link, because it's 50% at the moment. They do this once a time. It's not that they don't do deals at other times of the year, but they never do a deal like this platform that these courses are on. So in November, when it's Black Friday, it's at 50%, and that's it's a ridiculous deal, and you have to batten down the hatches and just breathe when you're the educator whose courses they are, because obviously you know their value. So the idea that you can pick up Brain Body Essentials for, I think, less than $150 is weird.
No, the brain body just, it kind of, what we've spoken about today, it certainly, it expands on that. But even that, it's just like, okay, well, I need to go down this rabbit hole. And like you've mentioned before, sometimes it's a rabbit hole which turns into a rabbit warren.
Yeah.
So you can really expand and focus on what you think is going to be best for your own practice and your own clinical advancement or your own clinical development
Yeah,
as
and
a healthcare professional.
I don't want this to be a plug for the course, but what I would say is that I do include, like, we go, here it is, here's all the things, and here's the way it affects us.
Yeah,
And I spend some time on that, but the last third is like, but this is what you can do. Like, let me
yes,
show you, let me give you tools that you can now use with your clients. You know, and this is how, and this is what you're looking to do. And if this one doesn't work, you can try this. The tools are there. It's just they're there for the people that want to use them. If you're not confident in a certain area, well, don't use that tool, right? Use the ones that do work for you.
perfect.
There is no way you can do that course and not be much further along from where you started, though. That's what I will promise you.
100%, 100%. All right, JP, Deb, thanks for coming. Well, we'll shoot this out to it's 250 people who after the recording. But until then, again, at some stage it'd be nice to speak with you again, JP, because it always seems like the time goes too fast. So at some stage we'll organise that again, if that's all right with you.
Been a pleasure, my friend. I'd love to come on again and have another cool conversation.
All right. Thanks, JP. Thanks, Deb. See you all later. Thank you.